live. But I'll wait to see that you guys all can see me and hear me. And then we will get started with our topic at hand. So, apparently the internet connection is not very good. We are having some storms. This is the country that I live in, so unfortunately sometimes the internet isn't as fast as it could be. So please just bear with me on that, and I'll wait to see that we're going to get started. We got a good topic to cover today. I look forward to covering this one. We are going to be talking about a big mistake that I see a lot of people making when they train their dog. A huge mistake. Also, like, a lot of dog trainers make this mistake. A lot of people evaluating dogs or trying to figure out why a dog is doing what they're doing makes this mistake. And I think this is going to be a really important topic to cover. But again, I'm just going to make sure that everybody can see and hear me. So some people are saying it's laggy. So we'll just see. Hopefully the internet kind of improves as I go. The internet's really spotty out here. Sometimes it's like really good, and then sometimes it's really not. Also, guys, please be aware that comments are delayed by approximately 30 to 60 seconds. So you could drop a comment. I won't see it till about 30 to 60 seconds later. Okay. All right, guys. So I see you all jumping on here. We are going to get started. So like I said, the topic at hand is going to be the biggest, well, one of the biggest mistakes I see people making when they're training dogs. Yeah, I'm really sorry it's laggy, guys. I don't know what to do about that. It's just, like I said, sometimes the internet here is great and sometimes it's crap. Anyways, here's what we're going to do. There's a sound. Okay, here, let me turn. I have a fan running in the background, so I'm going to turn it down. I see y'all jumping on here. Hello, everybody. We are going to get started. So the biggest mistake that I see people making, well, the big mistake that I see people making when they're looking at their dog or when they're looking at a dog and trying to figure out why the dog is doing what it's doing, why the dog behaves the way he or she behaves, why the dog responds to training the way he or she responds to training, is that they assume, oh, sorry, looks like you guys lost me for a second there. The big mistake that people make is assuming that the dog thinks the way that you think. They project themselves onto their dog, right? And I used to do this a lot, right? And let me get into this because I know you might be like, oh, come on, Haz, what are you talking about? Themselves onto their dog, okay? We all have different types of personalities, right? Humans tend to do this to each other as well, right? In the grand scheme of things, men tend to assume that women think the way they think. Women tend to assume that men think the way they think. That's from a macro perspective, looking at maybe like human beings. Then from an individual perspective, a lot of disagreements that we have with each other, a lot of misunderstandings that we have with each other, fundamentally come down to you assuming that the other person that you're having a problem with values the same things you value and thinks about things the same way you think about them. And that is a huge mistake that a lot of people make. And the reason why is we just naturally assume, we put ourselves in the other person's shoes. We put ourselves in the animal's shoes. And we assume, okay, well, what motivates me, how I feel about this is how he or it should feel about this, right? And I know some of you might be thinking, oh, come on, Haz, like, what are you getting at here? Let me get down to the nitty gritty of it. I'm gonna talk about it from the biggest thing that I see, like with the dogs, okay? So I'm gonna talk about the mistake that I made in the beginning. I am a more disagreeable type of person. I'm naturally, inherently a little bit more disagreeable. I'm not so much of a rule follower. I'm not so much of, and no, Maddie, you're jumping to the wrong conclusion. You're saying, oh my God, yes, dogs aren't people, people aren't people, people are people. No, that's not what I'm getting at. There are some dogs that are very much like people, and there are some people that are very much like dogs. That's not at all what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is that you are assuming that your personality traits, your individual personality traits, are the same as someone else's. And you're looking at things, you're looking at situations the same as that other human, right, would look at it and saying, well, they must feel this, they must think this, they must want this. This is a huge mistake. And dogs are no different. And I see a lot of people assuming that their dog is like them. So again, jumping back to me, I'm a naturally more disagreeable person. I'm not a rule follower. I'm not a guy that, oh, okay, these are the rules. I'm going to follow the rules. I'm going to be a good boy. I'm going to do all these things. I'm more independent. So if you give me a rule set, a rule system, the first thing I'm going to think about is, okay, how do these rules benefit me? And then how do these rules hold me back? How are these rules preventing me from getting what I want? And then once I've determined that, how can I skirt the rules? How can I get around the rules to get what I want? That's my natural predisposition. It would be an enormous mistake to assume that other people are like that, right? In fact, most people aren't. Most people are good little rule followers. And it's probably a good thing from a societal perspective that the average person is like that. Most people are very happy with rules. Most people are more naturally agreeable than I am. And let me explain to you how I made the mistake of assuming that dogs were the same as me, right? Because there are some dogs that are like me. They're more naturally independent. They want to get their own way. They might understand the rules, but still choose to circumvent the rules in order to get their own way, as long as they think that they can get there. Hold on. Let me just remove this person. We got a mentally ill person here, and I just want to remove this individual. All right. Okay, good. Removed. Anybody that unfortunately is, exhibits severe mentally ill traits, I'm just going to remove them. I don't want them in the chat. I don't want them anywhere on my stream whatsoever. Anyways, moving right along. So there are some dogs that are like me. It turns out I actually kind of like working with dogs that are like me. They're always kind of looking for their own benefit. They can understand the rules, but they can still choose to circumvent the rules as long as they think they can get away with it. Now, the strength that this brought to my training is I would always look for failure points in the training. Okay, where is the dog going to, for all intents and purposes, screw me? Where's the dog going to find a way out of this and say, you know what? I am going to chase that squirrel. You know what? I'm not going to let go of that sleeve. Whatever it is, right? Where is that failure point? So it really allowed me, that mentality that I have really allowed me to look at training and training systems as a whole and find the failure points, because my mindset is to look for those failure points and take advantage of them. But it would be a mistake to assume that all dogs are like that, because many are not. Many love the rules. Many will follow the rules, right? Especially if you show them the rules enough time. They're not always looking. In fact, most dogs aren't always looking to screw you. They're not looking always, to take advantage of you, right? Yes, they are self-interested creatures, as we all are to some extent or other, but their mindset isn't maybe as conniving as in the beginning when I first started. I kind of assumed that they were. You guys understand what I'm saying? Now, here's the flip side. Here's where I see a ton of people make mistakes. Most people are quite agreeable, Most people are quite, let's say, for lack of a better word, they're soft, right? They're maybe a little bit on the weak side. They're a little bit on the soft side. They don't want to, rock the boat too much. You give them the rules, they'll follow the rules, whether someone is watching them or not. The mistake they make is they assume that dogs are like them, right? The mistake they make is they assume, well, if I just tell the dog the rules, like I'm a good little rule follower, why won't they be a good little rule follower like me? And the reality is there are many dogs that are simply not like that. And here's where it even gets more, okay? They assume, so there's a lot of people, like I said, especially in the first world, in the societies that we live in, in Western Europe and North America. There's a lot of people out there that are, for lack of a better word, they don't like hard things. They don't like difficult things. They don't like doing things that require a lot of effort, that require overcoming adversity, so on and so forth. And they assume that the dogs are the same. And this is where they make an enormous mistake, because it turns out human, dog, probably any living being, if you think about something that's worthwhile, a relationship, an accomplishment, a game even, it's way more fun when there's a level of adversity involved, when there's a level of complexity involved, when there's, let's say a consequence for not being successful that makes the success that much more sweet, right? A lot of people ask me, why are my dogs, so intense in their work? Why do they act like they're obsessed with me all the time, so on and so forth? It's because I understand that they strive, that they are obsessed with overcoming adversity, right? Obviously in measured amounts. Different dogs can handle different amounts. But when you give them something, whether it's a ball, a piece of food, anything, getting to bite the decoy, whatever it is that you're doing, right? Eating food off of a track, finding an article on a track, anything you can think of in dog training, if you add adversity to the mix that they have to overcome, a measured amount of adversity, they value the outcome way more than if they just got the outcome, right? Think of it from your perspective. Think of it from the perspective of anything that you've ever had that's worthwhile, or anything that you've ever accomplished, right? Whether it's, I don't know, going to the gym, getting in shape, picking up a skill, getting a degree, winning at a game. There was some level of adversity involved that you had to overcome. There was some level of complexity involved. There was stress involved in the process that you overcame to achieve the outcome. And that's why the outcome is that much more sweet to you. That's why it's so meaningful to you, because of the adversity that you overcame, the stress that you overcame, the difficulty that you overcame to get to that outcome, right? It makes the outcome valuable. So, there's a saying, I love steak, right? This is a common saying, and you can hear it in a bunch of different ways. People say it in a lot of different ways. I love steak, but I don't want to eat it every night, right? I love pizza, but I don't want to eat it every night. People use this analogy all the time, right? Because we as human beings, we all intrinsically understand this. We all have food that we really like, ice cream, cake, cookies, whatever, right? That you really like, but if you ate it every night, it would begin to lose its luster. It would begin to nauseate you even a little bit. It would be very uninteresting after a while, right? It's the rarity of it, or the variability of it. It doesn't even necessarily have to be rare. You just don't get it every day, right? That makes it that much more valuable. So variability, and then of course adding a little adversity to it, right? So something even as simple as food. Okay, why don't we eat steak every night? Well, the average person doesn't eat steak every night because probably steak is quite expensive, right? Well, it's not probable. Steak is quite expensive. And it wouldn't be so easy to eat every night. And then on top of that, having the steak every night would be fairly uninteresting. I really hope that you guys are starting to see where I'm getting at with the dogs and how you make them absolutely obsessed with what it is that you've got. Okay? Whatever it is that you've got them working for. You can make dogs that much more motivated to do what you want them to do when you add measured amounts of variability and adversity to achieving the outcome that you want them to achieve, right? The more you want, the more you want the dog to give, the more of these things you add, right? In a measured and age-appropriate manner to the dog in front of you. So the big mistake a lot of people make is they assume, okay, well, and you'll see this more with, maybe guys that are a little bit more like A-type personality, guys and girls that are a little more A-type personality. And to be honest, I see it a little bit more with a lot more with the guys. He's trying to screw me. He's trying to beat me at this. He's trying to take this from me or whatever else. And they may be right when they're looking at their dog. They may be looking at the dog from that perspective of, okay, he's trying to get one over on me, right? When in reality, maybe he just doesn't understand. Maybe you haven't shown him the right thing enough times. Maybe he doesn't understand the rules clearly. And he's not trying to get one over on you. You just haven't shown, right? A lot of people involved in dogs these days, and I see this more with the ladies. I have no problem saying that. They tend to be maybe a little bit more softer, a little more agreeable, and they assume that the dog is like them, that the dog thinks like them. Well, if I just show him the rules, out of the goodness of his heart, he's naturally going to follow these rules because he must love rules the same way I love rules. Oh, I don't want to do that to him because I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't like to play rough like that. I wouldn't like, to receive a consequence for making a mistake. Oh, that makes me feel scared and icky, and I couldn't see myself going through those things and in any way enjoying that process. In fact, I perceive that process as being traumatic, and then they therefore assume that the dog is like that as well. Huge mistake, right? And I will say on average, I know I've been using a lot of dog-human comparisons. On average, the average dog is a lot, even though like the weaker dogs, is a lot tougher than the average person. Especially here in Western Europe and North America, right? The average person is quite weak and quite soft and quite mentally fragile, right? And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but that's the truth. Dogs are closer to nature, so they're not. Even the more fearful and insecure ones, they're not. And when you show the dog how to overcome adversity to achieve the outcome he or she wants, they become immediately stronger. That's why for me, if I had the option, right? If I had the option between training a dog, let's go into an imagination land and say, okay, you could train a dog exclusively with positive reinforcement to be extremely reliable and to do all the same things that you can see, any dog, trained in any other way do, right? You can just use cookies and a clicker and you can accomplish the same thing. Right? Like the dog will be able to do all the same things, right? Would you do it versus training in a balanced way, utilizing the corrections, utilizing the pressure, but also utilizing the reward and the reinforcement? No, because one is going to produce a more resilient dog, resilient mentally, resilient physically. A lot of people think of toughness as a physical attribute, and that's a mistake, whether it's with a dog or with a human. I've seen a lot of physically strong people and physically strong dogs that are very weak mentally, right? Toughness is not only manifested in the physical form. The primary form of toughness is in the head and in the heart. And it's the same with the dogs. And just like you can go to the gym and build your muscles, right? You can also build your dog mentally and physically with the right training. And any kind of good training program does both those things. You introduce your dog to measured amounts of adversity. You motivate your dog to do what you want him or her to do, but then you introduce them to measured amounts of adversity that are obstacles, in some cases, to them overcoming what you want, or that are consequences if they don't do the right thing, right? Of course, assuming that the dog understands what the wrong thing is, right? Now, adversity, a lot of people think of it as always bad, right? Always like, oh, like you're correcting your dog. You're speaking about a correction. That's not what I'm speaking about. Adversity can come in many forms. Adversity can come in something as simple as making a dog. Let's say I'm trying to give my dog a ball, okay? I want to give him the ball. The mistake I've said this 1,000 times. The mistake a lot of people make is they'll take the ball and just, here you go, here's your ball. Huge mistake, right? Instead of saying, here's your ball, right? And you didn't get it. You weren't quite fast enough. Now he missed the ball. Now here it is again. Oh, you missed the ball. You weren't quite fast enough. Here it is again. Ooh, you put on that extra burst of speed. Now you got the ball. The ball's in your mouth. You bring it to me. We're tugging for it. Oh, you weren't holding on to it tight enough. You lost it, right? Or you were holding on to it tight enough and you pulled it out of my hand. Good job. You win, right? That's an example of adversity in a structured play setting where I created measured amounts of adversity that made the game of taking the ball and playing with the ball, tugging with me with the ball, way more fun than it would have been if I was just like, here's your round piece of rubber, enjoy it, right? And that's a mistake a lot of people make, whether it's with play, with tracking, with obedience, with behavior modification, whatever it happens to be. There are many ways to introduce adversity. Adversity is a natural thing that we as human beings and dogs need to deal with in measured amounts to become more mentally and physically resilient. And what comes with resilience? Confidence, assurance, right? The ability to do more. And it's the same with the dogs, it's the same with the people. But a lot of people, like I said, live very, what's the word? They're very fragile. They live very, they live lives sheltered from adversity, and they assume that the dogs are the same, right? Because of they project their weakness onto the dog. Or, like I was saying in my case, right? I was projecting my own disagreeableness onto the dogs. When I realized, no, not all dogs are like that. There are many dogs that are not like that, right? Doesn't mean that they're inherently always going to do what you want them to do. What it means is that you shouldn't just assume that because you think and feel about a certain situation that way, right? You look at a rule set, you look at an outcome in a certain way that other humans and other dogs look at it the same way. That would be a mistake. This is the first, I've said this before in different ways, but this one I was really kind of pondering today because I had made a video where I had shown, what was it that I showed? I showed one of my dogs working in the video. And the dog was clearly really happy, right? He was in a focus heel. He was showing a lot of power, a lot of commitment in the work. And I was putting pressure on him with the e-collar, and I was rewarding him with the ball. And the dog was in a high state of arousal. He was clearly very excited, very happy. And there were many people commenting like, oh, good work, whatever. But then there was also those, oh my God, poor dog, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, he clearly is enjoying himself. He loves this, right? But I know you can't understand that he loves this because you aren't the type of individual. You're very mentally and physically soft and fragile. So you can't see how another being could enjoy doing something that isn't conducive to that state, right? And that's your failing, but you're projecting that onto the dog. All right, guys, I'm going to go through some of these questions here. Sherilyn Kuvas says, proud owner of Haz's courses, very effective lessons, but you have to put in the work. Absolutely. As with anything, you must put in the work. Earth Eclipse says, variety is the spice of life. Indeed it is, and that's the thing, right? An outcome given freely and regularly becomes less valuable than an outcome given variably and an outcome that requires some level of work to get, right? Rip Reinhold says, do you see frustration the same as adversity? Absolutely. I just described it in the structured play, right? Where the dog can fail in the play. He can lose possession of the toy or he cannot get the toy, right? Because he didn't do enough. He didn't do the right work. And that frustration can certainly create adversity, right? Adversity doesn't only have to come in the form of, like, let's say, physical pressure. Adversity is mental as well, right? Dogs, Tara Gleason said, dogs aren't human. People got to stop personifying them. You know, I disagree. Not that dogs aren't human. I mean, that goes without saying. Response, you know, how we value things, how we avoid things. We are very, very similar, right? I think that a lot of humans these days are very divorced from our nature, and they don't understand why it is that they do what they do and why it is they think what they think. So it's not that we're all that different, actually. It's just that they're very divorced from the natural world, and they're in denial about the things that work even for humans. So they're not able. This is where, the positive only ideology comes from. It's people that are in denial about the natural way of things, in denial about what motivates them, what obligates them, why they do what they do, and why, the outcomes that they've accomplished or not accomplished in their lives. They're unrealistic about these things because they can afford to be, because they live in a first world society that allows us to be somewhat divorced from the natural laws, right? Or at least pretend that those natural laws don't exist when in fact they do, and they inform absolutely everything we think and do. Earth Eclipse says, mental strength outweighs physical every time. Yeah, I would agree with that. If I had the choice between the two, I'd pick mental. Looking to buy a few of your courses. Do you have a promo code? I don't have any promo code right now, Jonah. Shayna says, a lot of activities in sports we love have adversity or chance of adversity involved. That's what we love. Exactly. You think of anything, whether you're playing a game of football, mixed, martial arts, like anything where, winning is an outcome that's extreme. And this is where, again, you can see where humans start to divorce themselves from reality. Like when they start to play like these games where they say, okay, in the kids' sports, for instance, there's no more winning and losing. Well, you're completely taking away the value of the game. They say, well, we just want them to have fun. You can only have fun when there's something on the line, right? Real meaningful fun, the kind of fun that gets into your blood, that's addictive, that makes you obsessed with the outcome, is having an outcome that is, desirable, and also having an outcome that is undesirable. Winning is desirable. Losing is undesirable, right? Are some people always going to lose? Of course. This is the natural way of things. But some people are also going to win. And guess what? They're not always going to win. But the variability of the winning and the adversity that they have to go through and become willing to go through in order to win is going to make them addicted to winning, right? Or trying to win at least. It's going to motivate them to do the things they have to do mentally and physically to be the winner, right? And the mistake is saying, well, it's stressful on the kids that lose. Well, yes, it's supposed to be stressful on the kids that lose, because losing is not desirable. It's not desirable in any facet of life. Winning is desirable. So I have a saying, find out what your dog values, and then determine how to make him a winner at what he values. Make it very easy to win in the beginning, and then create progressive adversity that's reasonable for his stage, his age, where he's at mentally and physically, that adversity that he can overcome, but adversity that does exist, and start scaling that adversity as you go along, whether it's in play, obedience training, tracking, whatever you're doing, protection work. This is the key to success. This is what builds a dog and makes a dog more. What you see with a lot of people, and you see this again, I love picking on these people because they're people that are completely divorced from reality. And don't get me wrong, neither extreme is good. You got the one side that's, okay, everything has to be warm and cuddly all the time. Everything has to be positive all the time. Nothing bad can ever happen. Oh no, he's over threshold. The poor baby's getting stressed. Let me go and run him home and hide him and put his thunder blanket on. And then you've got the other extreme where it's like everything just has to be tough and he just has to do it all the time, and there's no choices, there's no options. Everything's force, force, force. And there's no winning for that dog. There's no winning for either extreme. The winning is in the middle. We motivate, we obligate. We bring those two together in a reasonable level of balance. This is what creates a dog that truly works with his or her heart and soul. This is a dog that becomes, this is a dog that accomplishes, self-actualization at the highest, level of potential that he or she can accomplish. And people don't understand this because a lot of people aren't willing to engage in this pursuit with themselves individually. So how can they understand it from a dog's perspective? Christopher Wallace says, if you're not putting in the effort, you're probably not interested in the thing. That's very true. Watch Movie says, my dog is very dominant, and I really don't want him thinking he's put more power over me. I always ask him to do things before I give them the ball or feed them to the boss. Don't want him thinking... I don't know, that got cut off. I don't want him thinking he has more power over me. I don't know. I find a lot of people misdiagnose dominance, right? They misdiagnose it, and they assume that, you know, the dog is dominant when in fact the dog is just not clear on what you want, and the dog has learned that it's an option to not listen to you and follow what it is that you want to do, and the dog's just not invested in your program. It's not particularly dominance. A lot of the time it's just that the dog doesn't really have a true understanding of what you want, and your training is not structured in a way that is balanced to create a dog that is reliable and compliant. Let's see what else we got here. Anthony Bernstein says, I can see this working in tracking where the task naturally provides challenge, but how do you implement this in obedience? Well, I'll tell you, Anthony, how you implement this in obedience. First of all, again, I'm going to speak on this from a competition obedience standpoint. For me, pet obedience, I don't need power. I don't need activity in pet obedience. I just need functional control there, right? Just impulse control. And I'll give it to you from the pet obedience standpoint, and then I'll give it to you from the competition obedience standpoint. So from the competition obedience standpoint, I need a dog at the highest level of arousal. I need a dog in a full state of power, right? That dog giving me everything and everything that he does. Now, it's not reasonable from a pet obedience standpoint because pet obedience by its nature is long. You know, I'm going for a long walk. I don't need my dog focus healing next to me. I just need my dog next to me. But on the competition field, where I'm on the competition field for, let's say, like, you know, 8 to 12 minutes, I need my dog giving me everything he's got. So first I need to find out what it is that he really wants. Right? Then I need to make him want it more. Food, ball, whatever it is. Okay? So I have a high level of motivation. Now what I need to do is I can say, you want this. All right? This is the thing that you want. I am now going to not let you get it right away. I'm going to make you frustrated because you want it, but I'm going to block you from getting it. Right? And then when you show me enough effort, I'm going to let you have it. All right? So an example would be a dog on a back tie. I'm showing him the ball. I'm teasing him. He's barking on the back tie. He's really active. He's really excited. He's pulling. He's trying to get to me. He's like, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. And I'm making him active. I'm making him crazy, right? But I'm not giving it to him. And just not being able to get it is driving him through the roof. And then finally, when I think he's done enough, I give it to him. Okay? Now what do? I set up the same scenario, but instead of, I'll make him crazy, but instead of giving him the ball right away, I make him crazy, and then my bridge to giving him the ball is something like down. So he's, down. He lies down, boom, there's your ball. So now I'm driving the dog into a high state of arousal. I'm channeling that arousal into a behavior, and then I'm giving the reward for the behavior. That is way more valuable than just saying, hey, sit or down, and the dog lies down and there's your reward. I'm creating adversity there. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do that and to build on that and make it more and more, but that's an example of how you would do it in competition obedience. That's where you get that speed, that power, that high level of arousal from, right? And those people taking my secret sauce course know all the intricacies of this system that I do for my competition obedience. That's what creates focus and obsession, right? My wife said to me today, Gage really loves you. For those of you that don't know, Gage is my competition dog. I said, no, he doesn't love me. I said, he's obsessed with me. That's different. She's like, how's that different? I said, a drug addict is obsessed with their drug dealer, right? Think of it. A drug addict is obsessed with their drug dealer. Like anybody that knows anything about drug addicts, and I used to work with them, so I know a fair bit about them, right? They are obsessed with the drug. Who has the drug? The drug dealer, right? And for me, the drug is not the toy. Yes, the toy is very valuable, but it's all the things that they have to go through, calling the dealer 100 times, you know, trying to get the money together, going to meet him, all of this adversity they have to go through in order to get to the dealer and get the drug from the dealer, right? It creates already, obviously, they, you know, because drugs are terrible, you know, you become obsessed with the drugs relatively quickly, but you can't just get the drugs. You have to go through the dealer to get the drugs. And the dealer is going to require you to do certain things in order to get the drugs from him. And that's why you see a lot of drug addicts becoming obsessed with their dealer. Their dealer. It's like a relationship that they have, right? I'm Gage's dealer. But I'm not dealing just a ball. If I was dealing just a ball, he wouldn't be as obsessed with me. I'm dealing all the things that precede the ball. All the things surrounding the ball. He's addicted to all of those things. All my dogs are like that. That's why if you see me with my dogs, they're just constantly like, staring at me. They're obsessed with me, right? Because I'm pushing what they want. I'm dealing their drug, okay? My wife then goes, oh, well, he loves me. And I said, yeah, that's probably true. He does love you. She doesn't have that relationship with him. Her relationship is simply, you know, friendly relationship. They live together. She gives him affection sometimes. She feeds him sometimes. She says nice things to him. And that's what the relationship is. Now, here's the thing. He loves her. He doesn't listen to her at all. He loves my kids. He doesn't listen to them at all. Why? Because love, the mistake a lot of people make is they assume that love equals listening. Now, if you have kids, you know that that's not true. Right? If a child disobeys their parent, does it mean they don't love their parent? No, of course not. They love their parents. Oh, just about every child, even children with abusive parents, love their parents, right? But in many cases, they don't listen to them. They don't do the things the parents want them to do simply because they love them. So I always laugh when people are like, well, I'm not going to do that because I want to work on my bond with my dog. I'm like, you can have all the bond you want to have. You can bribe him till the cows come home. You can hug him and whisper sweet nothings in his ear till the cows come home. He's still not going to do what you want, right? Because love and respect are two different things, and love and the dog actually being functionally obedient are two different things. Now, ideally, do we want the whole package? Of course we do, right? And that's ideal. But one does not equal the other. And that's the mistake that a lot of people make. I dare say the same applies to human relationships. Not very popular to say it, but I dare say that it does, right? There has to be a little bit of everything in there. Uh-oh. What's going on here? I got something popping up on my screen that's slowing my whole computer down. There we go. Stupid Windows. All right, let me get back into this here. You asked about obedience. One more thing about obedience. So from a pet obedience standpoint, what does the average dog really want? The average dog really wants what? Like any pet. They want freedom, right? That's the ultimate reward. Yeah, they'll take food, they'll take the frisbee, they'll take whatever, but they want freedom. So guess what? You want freedom? These are the things that I require of you in exchange for freedom. You must come when I call you. You must sit, you must down. You must heel next to me for a space of time in which I ask that you heal from me. And when I give you that freedom that you can then go out and do what you want to do, there are still certain things that I require of you in that freedom, right? So freedom is the outcome the dog desires, and the dog must avoid certain behaviors that are, let's say, we've determined dangerous or unproductive or undesirable. Flip says positive only doesn't exist in nature. They may cooperate, but nothing is positive only. Nothing is positive only. It is an idiot's dream, pipe dream to believe that. Let's see what else we got here. Okay. E-collar training allow my dog to get her needs met, to run around like a wild woman. Thank God for that tool. Absolutely. You know, a lot of people, again, putting their own fragility forward and looking at everything through their own fragility and weakness, right? Would you, I bet you wouldn't wear that e-collar. Well, number one, I have worn the e-collar many a time. But number two, you wouldn't put that on your kids. What are you, crazy? If my 3-year-old could outrun me, imagine if your toddler could outrun you. Imagine how dangerous that would be. If your toddler was like super strong and could outrun you, you better believe we would be doing everything and more to those kids to keep them under control. The reality is, toddlers, your average human toddler, right? 3 years old, completely acts upon instinct. They can be sweet, but they can also be devilish. They're very cute, but at the same time, they can also be, they can also do extremely bad things. But they're physically fragile, they're small, and they're slow, right? We don't need to do the things to control them that we need to do with a dog that's extremely fast. Similar mindset, but fast and way stronger, right? So you better believe if my child was really fast and super strong, I'd be doing a lot more to keep him under control. I wouldn't just be whispering sweet nothings in his ear, and asking him to be a good boy. Now, I know a lot of parents do that these days, and it's always funny to watch them trying to negotiate with their toddler, but they have the luxury to do that because fundamentally, even if the child is not behaving, it is small, it is fragile, it is slow, and there's only so much it can do, even when it's at its absolute worst. So DR says, but how does it come that an old lady is walking a dog that is physically more powerful? The dog just walks next to the lady, is not reactive, but I never saw this happen with a working dog. Well, I will say why. Yes, you much less likely to see this with a working dog. You will see this often with dogs all over the world, right? The dog has no meaningful training of any kind. He's on a harness, he's on a flat collar. Maybe it's a big dog and it's walking next to someone, just minding his own business, being a good boy. Remember what I said about mistakenly assuming that the way you think is the way the dog thinks, the way you perceive the world is the way the dog perceives the world, or the way the human perceives the world? There are dogs that are good little rule followers that are, relatively lazy. They don't have a high desire to go out and self-satisfy in the environment. For them, just kind of walking peacefully next to that old lady is plenty. They're quite happy with that, right? Now, those aren't the dogs that I tend to get in here for training, because those aren't the dogs that the average person needs training with. Those are the dogs that are really easy to keep. Those are the dogs that allow you to talk nonsense on the internet because you think you know it all because you have a dog that's like that, right? But, the reality is there's many dogs that are not like that, right? Now, working dogs are much less likely to see that because they're bred to have a lot more desire and drive, that even if you're not giving the dog toys or something to satisfy that specific drive, they'll look out in the environment and find something that kind of approximates that, and then they'll start willfully engaging in that, much to the chagrin of whoever it is that's trying to control them and own them, especially if they don't know what they're doing. So that would be why. Canine German Shepherd mentions the Florida seminar. She's talking about the Ocala seminar that we have in November. I'll be coming down to Ocala and spending 2 days with handlers doing a obedience and protection workshop. So if anybody's interested in that, you can. Why don't you drop the email in the chat, Eileen, and I'll make sure that people see that email. But it's also on our Instagram, so you can contact Eileen about that seminar, and we still have audit spots. All the working spots are sold out for that. I also, in July 19th, I believe, that weekend, July 19th, myself and Oscar Mora will be doing a seminar here at Shield, and it'll be a power and control seminar, like an obedience and control a control and protection seminar, and with a specific focus on trialing, preparing dogs for trial and getting out there and being successful on the trial field. So that's going to be really exciting as well. And again, the information for that is in my Instagram. Cognition Canine is hosting that, so it's going to be good. All right, what else do we have here? I own an English line German Shepherd, used to be used by Metropolitan Police until show breeders ruined them. Well, there's plenty of working line German Shepherds out there, so, Show dogs are show dogs, and working dogs are working dogs. Think about probably the most, what sport is growing the most as of late, right? Look at what human sport is growing the most as of late. That would probably be mixed martial arts is the fastest growing sport out there. It's the one that's gaining the most popularity. It's becoming an international phenomenon. More and more people are watching mixed martial arts contests than ever before. Why? People are like, oh, because it's a blood sport, blah, blah, blah. Yes, people have always been attracted to these kinds of sports, right? People, and a lot of people assume, oh, it's just because it's gory or whatever else. That's not why. Right? Whether it's gladiatorial combat in ancient Rome or now, before in the 90s and 80s boxing, and nowadays mixed martial arts. Why do people want to watch that sport? Why is that sport so popular? All around the world, no matter where you go, people love those types of combat sports. Why? Because we inherently understand and recognize that there is a ton of difficulty and adversity involved in doing that. And that winning the winning of that sport, the outcome of winning, is so much more valuable because the option of losing in that sport is the consequences of losing. You could get knocked out. You could be embarrassed. You could be severely injured. Those extreme consequences for losing make the winning that much more impressive to us, and we all inherently, even if we don't consciously accept it, in our unconscious brain, we understand this. This is why sports like this are, probably the fastest growing sport out there. Jess Vale says, thank you for the S-litter pup. She's fantastic and such a hard, confident puppy. She loves to bite and will bark constantly until you let her bite whatever she's after. Not for the weak. Well, you asked for an intense girl, so I gave you one. So I'm glad that you like that. The No Pill Man says, Edmonton Oilers this year is a prime example of how adversity builds people. I agree. Not that I particularly watch hockey. I'll tell you why I stopped watching hockey. I stopped watching hockey because I was a Leafs fan. And the Leafs, whenever they faced, for those of you that don't know hockey, bear with me for a second, because this does have a general, it has something that's more meaningful behind it. The Toronto Maple Leafs are well known for, lately, especially over the last, I would say 7-8 years, they've been putting strong teams on the ice. The problem always comes that they always fail in the playoffs. And they always fail in the playoffs within like the first or second round 9 times out of 10. Why? Because it seems that whenever the adversity ramps up, they fall apart as an organization. No matter who's on the ice, no matter what the management is, they're well known for this curse. And they did it to me enough times that I rode that high with them and then just was so disappointed in the playoffs repeatedly that I said, I'm not going through this with these people anymore. There's something wrong with this organization that they're unable to deal with the level of adversity presented by the playoffs, and they always implode there. And there's something systemic within the organization that prevents them from being successful when the adversity increases. And it's been year after year after year. But it's amazing. I don't know if there's another sports team that's quite like that. Because it's in the regular season, they're quite a good team, right? And I said, I can't invest myself in this team anymore because they're missing that extra thing. There's something so systemically wrong with them. It's actually affecting me negatively. Did you know that they've actually studied this? I mean, more men are sports fans than women. That's a natural fact. So they've actually studied things like hormone levels, so like your testosterone levels. If you're invested in a sports team, you follow that sports team. When they win, you feel good. Why do you feel good? Because your testosterone levels actually go up. This is a matter of science, right? And if they lose, you feel bad. Why? Because your testosterone levels go down. So I said, why am I allowing this team to actually impact me negatively you know, if it'd be one thing if they were able to sometimes overcome that adversity and we were able to start to see some progressive victories. But instead, they consistently do the same thing and they affect me negatively every single time. Is it a huge effect? No, but it's still an effect. And I'm not willing to put myself through something that's unhealthy, right? So that's, again, a microcosm of what we're talking about here. What else do we got? Sorry, guys. I'm a little behind on the comments. Gregory says, I get a speed boost after my turns while tracking. Give me some tips. Gregory, if you're in my course, you know what I do for speed issues on the track. But I will say this. The way that I design my tracking, I'm able to put pressure on the dog when the dog isn't doing something that I want them to do and they understand it. If you don't know, if you haven't laid the foundation in your tracking like that, then you're not going to be able to easily impact the speed of the dog after the corners or in any capacity whatsoever. The mistake a lot of people make is they try to correct speed, right, directly. So, he's going fast, bang, 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 let me correct him. Dogs don't really understand that so well. They don't understand speed. They understand being on odor or off odor. So a little tip I'm going to give to you is when you can predict where your dog is going to speed up, set it up so that the speed pushes him out of odor. And then you can make your pressure out of odor until the dog gets back to odor, right? G Harm says, any chance I can join your training seminars online with an explosive detection canine? I'm not sure how to balance obedience with work. Canine bongos and Mel Shep, great drive, struggles with obedience. If you're speaking about my online courses, just take the Elite Off Leash Obedience course, right? There's this weird perception out there that if you put some obedience on your dog, he will no longer be able to do detection. That is not true at all. Right? Especially if you're doing functional obedience, right? That's definitely not true, right? Functional obedience is just basic impulse control, basic ability to put the dog like in downs, heels, stays, all that type of stuff. But if you think about detection, it's primarily a motivation-based behavior. The dog is still going to really love detection and want to do detection. You'll just have some brakes and a steering wheel on the dog. So I suggest you do that. Cody Briggs says, when looking for an IGP dog, no IGP experience, what would you tell someone? I would tell someone to connect with a coach that knows what they're doing, has a history of taking people and coaching them to success, and get the right dog for the sport. So first of all, I suggest finding the coach first. Whether it's an online coach or an in-person coach, find the coach first that has that track record. Then have them suggest to you where to get the dog. Right? Get the dog and then follow their system and their program. Tara McFadden says, you said testosterone is important for protection dogs, but there are studies that suggest females are better protection dogs. Is there weight to these studies? Why is testosterone preferable to you? No, I said testosterone matters. I didn't say testosterone makes for a better protection dog. Testosterone, when applied to, let's say, overcoming adversity and combat situations, is without a doubt, I don't know how anyone could even argue with that. We know that the impact it has is exponential. Here's why females tend not to be, let's say, as effective in combat scenarios. Whether it's an animal female or a human female, right? I mean, again, we're going to speak from a scientific perspective, not a personal opinion perspective. What is a female's primary biological objective, and what is a male's primary biological objective, right? Think about that, you understand the difference. Why do males have testosterone and females don't, right? Well, females do have testosterone, but males have like 20 times what a female does, right? Of course, both genders, whether it's an animal or a human, we have the urge to reproduce. That's obviously procreation is a huge portion of why we do all the things that we do, whether it's directly or indirectly. But our strategies and our roles in the procreation process are very different, right? So when you think about a female, what is her job? Her job is to carry the young, okay? When she's carrying the young, she's in a higher state of what? Vulnerability. She is physically what? Weaker, right? When she has the young, what is her primary objective? Her primary objective is to look after the young and raise the young, right? Which makes her what? More vulnerable, right? The male's objective is a little bit different. Now, obviously, again, we're not speaking on societal norms. These are completely different things. We're not speaking on program behavior and all of this stuff. We're speaking on an elemental, just biological, animal perspective. We're not looking at it, we're removing social norms from the whole process. We're just looking at it from an evolutionary biological perspective, right? Testosterone exists because what is the male's primary role, right? The male's primary role is obviously to mate with as many females as he can mate with. That's the male's strategy, right? But the male also has to what? He has to hunt. He has to fight other males. And in order for him to do that, what does he need? He needs physical strength. He needs testosterone to motivate him to utilize that physical strength to do those things, right? And that's the impact it has. Females have naturally more self-preservation because it's more important for them to preserve themselves. Males tend, again, we're speaking in generalities. There's exceptions to everything. Males tend to have less self-preservation. That's why young men, young human men, for instance, are much more likely to die young doing something stupid than females are, right? Now, from a dog perspective, anyone that's had enough males and females will tell you there's a huge difference, right? Now, is it an enormous difference? No, like for sure. I have some females right now that are better than your average male, but in general, we in the working dog world will be like, wow, that's a female? Like if it's a really exceptional dog, that's a female? And we'll be surprised that it's a female because typically females are softer, they're more compliant, and they're not as strong in the protection work because what are they missing? They're missing that testosterone. I wouldn't even say it's a... Sorry. So how did they determine that females were better protection dogs? I bet you they did something like see which did male dogs or female dogs bark more or something silly like that. I guarantee you that's what they did. Right? They didn't really have they didn't have professional decoys or helpers evaluating them, right? But generally, like I said, females have a higher sense of self-preservation. They're a little bit maybe less hard, less confident. And when it comes to bite work, they tend to just not be quite as much as a male. Now, there are certainly benefits to having females. I always say if this is your first working dog and you're not sure like if you're going to be able to control the dog and you're not sure like, if how it's going to go, get a female. They're easier. They're more compliant in general. Now, they also can be a little bit more on the defensive side because, again, they have that higher sense of self-preservation. It's not that the defensive nature, that nature of, oh no, there's a threat comes from strength. It's not coming from a position of strength. It's coming from a position of, well, I'm a little bit weaker, so I have to keep more of an eye out for threats, right? It's the same with a lot of different species, to be quite frank, right? Especially with humans, it's the same. So this is why I say that. Now, if you're saying, look, I want a dog that's going to bark and maybe bite, and well, that's a whole different thing. I was speaking in general about dogs and bite work. If you want a dog that's a little bit stronger in the bite work, a dog that's maybe more confident in the bite work, your rule of thumb is you go with a male, you're more likely to get what you want. It's not that you can't get what you want with a female, You know, I have a couple of really nice females right now, but they are not the norm. And that's what it's important to understand. Like, I have one female right now. I'm very happy with her. I like her. If she was a male, she would have been gone like 6 months ago. You know what I mean? What I'll tolerate in a female isn't anywhere like I need way more out of a male. Ruslana asks, are you planning to compete in IGP international level? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And if everything goes well, you'll see me there this year at the Worlds. Which Worlds? I have yet to decide. Manny Mendez says, hi, Has. Hope all is well. Is there a distinction between a dog that will bite for sport and personal protection and sports dogs that will only bite for sport and not bite for personal protection? Absolutely, there's a distinction. Right? A lot of it's training. You know? I'll give you an example. My son, when he was, I don't know, 3 years old, right? We moved him out of his crib because I had another child and, you know, we had a new baby and it was time for him to take over the crib. My son was quite happy in the crib. He didn't have a problem being in the crib. The crib was his happy place. He loved his crib. We moved him out of his crib and we moved him to a toddler bed, which is like basically like an adult bed, but really low to the ground. And there's no bars around it, obviously. So the child can leave the crib or leave the bed when he or she wants. He, for his first 3 years of life, had lived in a crib when he was sleeping. Like he had not lived in a crib, sorry. He had slept in a crib. So he never got out of it unless we went and got him out of it. For the first few months, when we put him in that toddler bed, he would never leave the bed. He would call us into the room to get him off the bed. Because he, even though the bars were no longer present, he didn't perceive that it was possible to get off the bed. Because in his entire life, we had always taken him out of the bed that he was in. He had never been able to get out on his own, nor had he, his personality, he had never particularly wanted to get out on his own. He always waited for mommy and daddy to get him out. Nowadays, he gets out of that bed all the time, way too much after, actually. But like, it took him months before he understood that, oh, like, I could just get off of this whenever I want. I don't have to call mommy and daddy to get me out of the bed anymore. Because that was all that he knew. Dogs in sport, in many cases, have only seen the sport picture. They've, in many cases, not been shown something outside of the sport. And in many cases, it's deliberate. The handler intentionally does not want the dog to do anything other than protection in the sport. They don't want protection in real life. They don't want any kind of bite work outside of that sport context. So the dog in real life, in many cases, wouldn't do anything or wouldn't even know how to do anything because they've never done anything outside of that sport context. Now, don't get me wrong. There are many sport dogs that would 100% do something, and they're just naturally oriented that way. They're just naturally like that. They just have that edge. They have that nasty side. And, you know, if you push them the right way, they will bite you regardless. And then there are some dogs that, you know, are that child in the crib that have just been put in the toddler bed. They don't understand that there's more that they can do. For me personally, with all my sport dogs, except Chico, I have shown them that there is bite work outside of dog sport. And I believe that it makes them more better in the actual dog sport. With Chico, because he's a dog of extreme drive, extreme commitment, I don't think that doing bite work outside of dog sport would actually help him. I think it would hurt me and hurt my control of the dog and hurt his proficiency within the sport, so I don't do it with him. So I hope that long answer is a clear answer to your short question. And there are certainly some dogs, and again, it comes down to the individual. Outside of the context of sport as a game, they couldn't do it. Right? Like, they can play the game, but the second things get real, they get going. Native Turby says, my German Shepherd has too much adrenaline as a puppy, and into 2 years, is that normal, or is that the food we feed it? No, that's just you not having control of your dog and not being able to tell your dog, hey, there's a time to be crazy and there's a time to be calm, right? A lot of people just wait for the dog to pick this behavior up naturally. When you train the dog properly, you don't need this naturally. You're able to, you know, say to the dog, hey, you know, like, this is not the time and place for you to be crazy. Is the live gone, guys? Let me know if it's gone. The damn internet here, it's unbelievable. I just dropped something in the chat. Let me know, guys, if it's working, and if it's not, then I'm going to check out. No, it is? Okay, I'll keep going a little bit longer, then we'll start wrapping up. By the way, if you haven't liked the video, like the video. It costs you absolutely nothing. It's a stupid internet. I can't wait to go fiber optic for my internet here. Let's see here. Mario Greco says, enable PayPal on your site. My payment options aren't working. Please email info@shieldk9.ca and we can set up an alternate payment method for you if you want to get an online course. Ian White says, hi from UK, security dog handler on shift with my 2 German Shepherds. Love your channel. Well, I appreciate that, Ian. Stay safe out there. Cody Briggs says, can I email you directly for this advice? Very interested in the sport. I've been a sub 3 years solid. Saw your dogs posted for sale on the site. What am I looking at to pick a dog? Would Hurricanes puppies be something you would look at? Yeah, absolutely. If you're interested in a dog, you can definitely hit me up. You know, if you want coaching on IGP, I suggest you get an online course. It's definitely not something that could help you with over an email. You know, it's one of those things where I would strongly, if you're in the UK, find someone who's successful in the UK, and if possible, hook up with them and start training with them in person like once a week. I have a fair few clients that do that, and every one of them, because I've trialed so much and I've trained so much, you know, they're able to get that leg up that they can then go into trials and pass all their trials and do relatively well in all their trials, considering that it's their first dog. And anybody that's proficient as a coach should be able to do the same for you. It's like, you don't have to go into trials, cross your fingers and hope. You can go into trial with a reasonable, you know, assurance that you're going to be successful there with your dog. Earth Eclipse says, I disagree a little with male-female. Yes, females are often smaller or less strength and are meant to have and raise young. But that mental strength is of you're not taking my kids is much stronger. Yes, but you're assuming that they apply that to protection. And in many cases, they simply do not. Now, don't get me wrong. Any of my females has a litter of puppies. You come in and try to take one, they're going to probably rip you up a little bit. That's an intrinsic natural drive that they have when they have those puppies on the ground. It's not present in just a general natural state. It's with the context of those puppies being there on the ground. They're nursing those puppies. You know, they're going through all the hormonal changes associated with the litter being there. They will be more aggressive towards other dogs. They will be more aggressive towards people, even people that they know. This is a well-known fact of anybody that's bred dogs. And especially working females tend to be significantly, let's say, nastier with their puppies. And it's, you know, it can be, you know, a little bit dicey helping the female and handling those puppies around her. So, but that's related specifically to the puppies, not generally in life. Tara McFadden says, thank you. I got my first Doberman and I was warned away from females as a first Doberman because they're more prone to aggression. My male is very confident but very trusting towards strangers. Yeah, they're not so much more prone to aggression. They're probably just a little bit more fearful, and the fearfulness manifests as reactive behavior, which people mistakenly, you know, accrue to the dog being more aggressive. It's not. Vegas Mariposa says, which one of your personal dogs had the biggest impact on your life? Not just training. What was their name and what was your favorite memory? I mean, that's a really good question. I gotta say, pet dog, like a dog just from like a straight pet perspective. For me, I had a Chihuahua named Rambo, and he was my favorite. I loved hanging out with that dog. He just had such a happy-go-lucky personality. My favorite memories with him are just hanging out on the couch, man. He was awesome. He'd just lie there on the couch with you. He'd always be cuddled up with you. He was just a sweet, sweet dog. And I was really sorry to lose him to old age, unfortunately. From a favorite memory perspective, I would say Gage, winning with Gage. Having that outcome after years of work with Gage and accomplishing what we accomplished at the Quebec Regionals and at the Canadian Working Dog All-Breed Championship. Those are my favorite memories so far when it comes to working dogs. Let's see what else we got here. Somebody's asking me, sorry, I can't spell your name. Hello, just want to ask, what's your opinion on the giant German Shepherd breed? Is it purebred or mixed? And what is your thoughts about this breed in general? I have seen pictures and their size is really big. Listen, there's always people that are doing the gigantic oversized German Shepherd thing, and they're calling it different things. Giant German Shepherd, Lycan Shepherd, King Shepherd, whatever nonsensical moniker you want to add to the German Shepherd. All it is they're just simply breeding oversized German Shepherds. Whenever you're breeding something for anything other than stability, character, and health, you must understand that you might get that thing, color, structure, size, whatever it is, you're going to get that thing relatively quickly. It's actually the easiest thing to quickly change. And you can accomplish this within a couple of generations. Just be aware that you're going to lose those internal things, right? The health, the character, the stability. That's what you lose, right? So if you want to go and get a giant German Shepherd, by all means get one. But just understand, you're probably going to have a giant, unhealthy pussy of a dog. Earth Eclipse says, if you podium at nationals in Canada, where does this take you competition-wise? Well, I've already podiumed at a national, so I can go to Croatia and compete internationally there. And if I podium at German Shepherd Nationals, then I can go to Meppet in Germany and compete at the WUSV there, which would be my preference, to be honest with you. Larry Anderson says, why do some PSA competitors claim that getting a PDC means their dog is capable of personal protection work? He said the carjacking civil scenario teaches the dog to protect the vehicle. No, it doesn't. It's a specific, it's like saying that my dog will go in a blind and bark, that means that my dog will guard. Like, no, it doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, it's a specific sport-based scenario that has a very specific context that occurs in a very specific place under very specific rules. The dog is not stupid. He recognizes all of those things. That definitely doesn't equate to, oh, my dog will protect for real. But there are people in everywhere that say lots of stupid things, so it's definitely not something to particularly concern yourself with. Harold said, does Stefan from Stotsmock Kennels sell dogs to the general public? Been trying to get in contact with them for a while about an upcoming breeding, but haven't heard back. Yes, they do. I don't think Stefan is probably the most communicative individual, and I would say that he has a very low patience for anyone that he doesn't perceive as being serious and anyone that he perceives as maybe wasting his time, because he has a lot of demand for his dogs. I'm not saying that's you. I'm just saying that could be why, so just be careful like how you word your email and how you ask him. Or it could simply be that he's just super busy and he hasn't had a chance to get to you yet. My recommendation is persistence. Persistence is always a good way to get your message across, but do it in the right way, Vimon says, hi, big fan. Your content and book have helped me immensely. How do I teach my dog to temper his energy? He is 100 miles per hour all the time. He's not out of control, but I just want him to throttle back some. You cannot teach a dog to temper his energy. What you can do is teach a dog the context that he can be energetic in. I take him loose, turn him loose in a field, let him run, let him be crazy. I put him in the backyard, let him run, let him be crazy, right? I take him for a walk. Well, there are rules for the walk that he must follow. I have him in the house. There are rules in the house he must follow, right? This is something the dog can understand. Earth Eclipse says, I study enviro, so over domestic. Much crosses over. Yes, like we must understand that dogs are domestic. They are not, dogs and wolves are basically the same thing, but they, through the domestication process, we've adjusted the instincts of a wolf and the stimulus response mechanisms of a wolf, right? Whether it's from a social perspective or something else, to work within our domestic requirements of the dog, the specific breed of the dog. And this, I say that dogs and the wolves are basically the same thing because they can breed together and have viable offspring. So that would make them genetically similar enough that we could say that they're pretty much the same thing. But what motivates them is different. The instincts of the wolf we've taken and twisted and changed to work with whatever specific thing that we're trying to get, you know, the dog to do, or that we wanted the dog to originally do. When you understand it from that perspective, it makes sense. Do I still have Kevin? No, Kevin is long gone, and he is in a good home, hopefully. What's your thoughts on using successful together? I don't know anything about that. I don't use that. You're talking about another, you know, dog trainer, or you're talking about another person's program. I use my program, and I train with my program, and I can only comment on that. William Chi says, so Has, if I reach out to you to buy a puppy, you would recommend a male to me? I'm a retired married man, no children, looking to raise a protective dog. No, because a protective dog just simply means you want a dog that's going to bark and be suspicious of strangers. You don't need a male for that, right? Now, if you say, look, Has, I want to do bite work and I want, like, you know, some pretty high level bite work and blah, blah, blah. Well, then I would say, yeah, okay, then, you know, maybe a male is what you're after. If you said, look, Has, maybe it's my first dog, I'm not maybe the best handler, I want a dog with drive, I want to be able to do bite work, but I want to make sure that, you know, I'm remaining in control of the dog, and I want a dog that's kind of easy to live with and easy to control, then I would say, yes, you should get a female. Susie said, a few months ago I asked you, how do you get a German Shepherd to out a ball? You answered me with one word, pressure. It does sound like me, doesn't it? I did it twice, and bless, he now outs the ball 99% of the time. Great. I would say that also, when you look at out, you must look at it in a balanced way. Yes, if he doesn't out the ball, there should be pressure. But if he does out the ball, what does he get? That's something you should be thinking about, right? If he outs the ball, there should be something in it for him. It shouldn't just be out it because I mean, you could definitely go down that road. But if you want optimal performance from the dog, give him something when he outs the ball. Give him a reward when he outs the ball. And if he doesn't out the ball, there should be a consequence, of course. What is the right age to start with e-collar training? It's not about the right age. It's about the right training progression. And if you understand the training progression, you understand how to train with the e-collar, you understand it's not about a magical age. It's about just knowing when a dog is mentally at that point that you can start using the e-collar. I suggest you get my Elite Off-Leash Obedience course or read my book. Both of those will shed a lot of light on that. Casey Crowther says, is there a sequence of training that you stick to when training for IGP? For example, train healing, jump, frame, bark, hold, and escape, etc. in any particular order? Yeah, I mean, I'll typically focus in the beginning with a puppy on like positions, like motion exercises, healing, things like this. You know, protection I train completely separately, and I train the dog, you know, grip work. I train the dog barking properly. You know, you're speaking about escapes and things like this. I don't train that. Before I ever do escapes, my dogs learn how to bite properly. They learn how to bark properly. Before I ever do a long attack, my dogs learn how to target properly. There's all the foundation in IGP is what? Bite, bark, target. Once you have that, then you can get into specific exercises like escapes, long attacks, so on and so forth, right? The No Pill Man says, how many people who go through your reactivity bundle and put in all the work achieve success? I would say everyone that puts in all the work achieves success. There's really like, reactivity is reactivity. It's not rocket science. It's easy to fix, right? You just have to put in the work and be willing to do all the things that you need to do, right? I've never seen someone that's like, I'm working so hard and we're not accomplishing success. I've seen people that say, oh, I'm doing X, Y, but I'm not doing Z, and for some reason it's not working. Well, yeah, it's because you're not doing Z. Corks, with a Caucasian Ovcharka, how much should you walk it? Or is it needed if they can roam freely? Well, I mean, look, you're welcome to walk your Caucasian Ovcharka, but if you live in the country and the dog's just loose, like they're perfectly fine just kind of hanging out. They're not, I find, very energetic dogs. They're actually pretty calm, relaxed dogs. If they were super energetic, they wouldn't be particularly good at their job, which is kind of lying around and watching over a herd of animals or watching over... sorry, not a herd of animals, watching over a property. That's really their job. So if they were super energetic, they wouldn't stay around. They would always be moving and leaving, right? So a lot of livestock guardian dogs tend to be a little bit more on the lazy side, you know? So unless you're living with the dog in the house, you don't really need to walk them so much. Maria says, what breed should you get if it's your first time with a high drive dog to do protection or bite work? You get yourself a German Shepherd. Those are the easiest ones to deal with. David McLaughlin says, I taught mine to out with the 2-ball system. Once they let go, they get the second ball. Then eventually I took away the second ball once the behavior was learned. Yeah, you can do it like that. I've seen that one not work a whole bunch of times because the second the dog realizes, oh, there's no second ball for me. Why should I let go? You know, it's all about incentives, but it depends on the type of dog you're dealing with. Thoughts on doggy treadmills for a rainy day? I mean, you can certainly use them. I have used the reactivity bundle and it worked flawlessly. Yeah, I know. Like, I have thousands of people in that course, you know, numerous success stories. It is what it is, right? Susie says, so now I have another question. I live 4 hours away. Can I schedule a training session to show me how to use an e-collar properly? I'm too nervous that I might mess it up somehow. You don't. Owen says, hey, Haz, don't have a pup yet. I'm doing my research first, aka watching all your videos before getting one. Training is constant and consistency is key. Absolutely. Greetings from Poland. Greetings to you. Vimon says, the no pill man, just buy the bundle and follow the instructions. That's the best answer. I find people that are like asking a million questions, and no offense to you, the no pill man. Maybe you're not one of these. These are the people that actually aren't going to do the work. You know, you either believe in the process or you don't. And if you don't believe in the process, you must go find someone whose process you believe in. You shouldn't be like trying to get Tom, Dick, and Harry to convince you to do it. If you believe in the process, you believe in the trainer, you believe in the system, you follow it. If you don't, you go find someone who you believe in and you follow what they're doing. You know what I mean? But whenever you're asking a million questions, I find usually this is like someone that's going to find 100 reasons not to do what it is that they're supposed to do, when it's really just a simple thing to do, right? Native Terpy says, but with a leash you can get away with misuse, because if the dog pulls into the leash and just drags you around for his entire life, well, it's going to be a pain in the ass for you, and he's not going to learn anything productive, but nothing bad will happen. With an e-collar, you use it the same way that you use a leash if you're training with a leash properly, but a lot of people don't know how to train with a leash properly, which is why we have a system that's pretty easy to follow, and you follow that system and you're going to be able to use the e-collar effectively and train the dog properly. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Nice talking to all of you. Sorry about the internet. Unfortunately, this is something I'm going to have to fix before I do this again. I'll see you on the next one.